So today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a very simple lobby system. So people can touch these pads and they're going to join a lobby. And afterwards, you guys can do whatever you want with those people, whether that's teleporting them, say, over here or to a completely different game. That'll be up to you. But I'll be showing you how to add people and how to remove them from the lobbies. So the first thing I like to do before I even get started with scripting is I like to make sure that I have my physical pieces. So I'm going to have 3 pads, and I put them in a folder called lobbies in the workspace. And as you can see, all 3 of them are located within. So let's get into the scripting part. We're going to go into server script service here. We're going to make a new script. Get rid of the default print. And I'm going to go ahead and make a table called lobbies. And this is actually going to be a dictionary. And what the difference is between a normal table and a dictionary is that a dictionary is going to have different entries here. In this case, my entries are actually going to have the same name as my lobbies in the workspace. And this is just to make it a little easier when I'm trying to find who's in what lobby in the future. And we're going to go ahead and do this and make sure they're all also tables. And they're going to be empty because this is where we're going to keep track of who's in what lobby. And of course, you can add as many as you want. I'm only using 3. You can add up to 10 if you really wanted to, but realistically, I would keep it maybe a max of 8. So maybe 4 lobbies on each side. All right, so now that we got that set up, now we need to find a way to detect when these parts are touched. And every part in Roblox that is a physical part within the workspace has a dot touched property. So we're going to use a for loop here. If you do not know what a for loop is, I would highly recommend you look up a tutorial, whether it's mine or somebody else's, on what exactly a for loop does. So I'm going to go ahead and loop through the lobbies folder. We're going to get the children, which will be lobbies 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to detect when the pad is touched, whatever that pad may be. So v.touched, we're going to connect it to an unnamed function here. And it always passes the parameter of whatever touched it. So before we continue any further, we need to make a debounce, or it's also called a cooldown. And usually I'll make them global, meaning I'll put them out here outside of the loop. But in this case, I want each and every pad to have its own individual cooldowns. So I'm actually going to add it inside here as a local variable. So once the part is touched, first we want to make sure the part is actually a person. So if it's usually it'll be your left feet or your left leg touching the part. So the parent of that would be you, the actual character model. But we want to make sure you have a humanoid, make sure you're an actual person, right? So we're going to say if hit.parent. We're going to find the first thing inside of the character called humanoid, which you should have. So we're going to say and debounce equals false. So debounce is already false, so both of these should be true. And if they are, what else are we going to do? We're going to add people to the table. And if they're already in the table, we're going to stop them from being added to the table, right? Because we don't want duplicates inside. But before I go further, I'm going to backtrack here real quick. We want to define the player. Just to make it a little easier so we can add their names. So say local player. I don't know why it keeps trying to recommend me things like that, but we're going to keep rolling with it. And then there's a get player from character event that you can, that's not event, I don't know what to call this, but it does exist for the players. So if you have something whose name, whether it's a part or whatever, and its name is equal to someone that's in the game, it's going to grab their player within game.players. In my case, mine's going to be hit.parent. Okay, so now that we have the player defined, we're going to set debounce to true. So that way, even if they keep touching the pad, debounce is now equal to true, which means this second portion here is now not going to be true, so it will not execute the code within this if statement. Now I'm going to say if they're not in the table, but first we got to find them. We're going to search the lobbies. We're going to search for the entry whose name is equal to the lobby's name. And we're going to search for hit.parent.name, which should be the player's character's name. So if they're not in the table, we're going to use table.insert. We're going to insert them into the lobby. lobby's table inside of the entry whose name equals what pad you're stepping on, and we want to insert hit.parent. Awesome. And then we're just going to add a little print that says player has joined the lobby. And then we're going to go ahead and print lobby's name. So this will give us a visual that we're actually in the lobby. I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to float over there anyway. And I'm going to touch this. And you see it says I have joined the lobby. And inside of the table, there I am. All right, so now that we got that established that I can now join the lobby, I need a way to detect when I want to leave the lobby. But before we do that, let's go ahead and reset this cooldown. So task.wait, however long you want to wait before someone else can touch the pad. We're going to set debounce false afterwards. So that way, when you do touch it, both of these statements are true again, meaning it'll execute everything in here. And just for show, I'm going to add an else and just say print player is already in the lobby. So basically, if they're not in the lobby, it's going to insert you into the table and say you've joined the lobby. Otherwise, it's going to say you're already in. All right, so how are we going to handle people leaving the lobby? Now, you could have an event where you detect when they walk off. However, I have a little simpler way to do this, and honestly, I think it's a lot more effective, and it works 100% of the time. Because the touched event, I find it very finicky within ROBLOX. All right, so first I'm going to make a little GUI. I want a button to show up when they join the lobby, and they can just click it, and it'll knock them out of the lobby, and it'll let them join any other lobby they wish. So we're going to go ahead and go into Starter GUI. We're going to make a screen GUI. I'm going to call it Leave Lobby. We're going to add a frame, and I'm going to add a text button. The only reason I want to make it a text button is because I get to put a little X here. I can scale it up. You know, just make it look a little fancy. I like it when my buttons look kind of cool. So I'm going to also add a UI fill here. UI stroke. We're going to add a thickness to it. Cool. Now we have our little X button. So now what? We're going to insert a local script into this. So we're going to say script.parent, which is the button, .mouse button one click. We're going to connect it to an unnamed function. So we're going to connect it to an unnamed function. And basically, we need to find a way to remove me from one of these tables from a completely different script that's a local script. So how do we go about doing that? This is where we need a little bit of server to client communication. And the way we can have this local script, a client-sided script, communicate with a server-sided script is with a remote event. Here in replicated storage, you're going to want to make a new remote event. We're going to call it leave lobby. So in our local script here, we're going to reference our remote event with game.replicate storage, leave lobby, and we're going to tell it to fire server. So every time you click this button, it's going to fire off the server. What does that mean? Well, it's going to send a signal to any server script that is listening for this event. So how do we make sure that this script is listening out for that? Well, outside of the for loop, we're going to add a game.replicate storage.leave lobby.on server event. So specifically listening for the leave lobby's server event, which is currently going to get fired from us clicking this button. And the one thing it always passes is who sent the signal and any other variables you want to pass from the local script. And in our case, we don't really need to send anything. So we're just going to stop at player. So now we need to figure out what lobby our player is in. So I'm going to use another for loop here. And I'm going to loop through the lobbies. The big old lobby table we have up top. And I'm going to use table.find. So if table.find we're going to search through all the tables. So V is going to be equal to lobby 1, 2, and 3 up here. And we're searching for the player's name because that's what we inserted up here with hit.parent.name. Because they should be the same thing. So if they're in the table, we're going to use table.remove from whatever table we found them in. Then we're going to use table.find once more. And then we're going to add a print. Player has been removed from the lobby, just so we have a little visual in the output. And then on the, we're going to add a comma, and we're going to tell it to print. We're just going to tell it to print V, because that is the name of the table we're getting. And when it does print, it's going to be an empty table. Awesome. But there's another issue. We have not set up for this button to actually appear and disappear. So how do we do that? So up here, to make the button show up, we're going to say player.playerGUI.leave lobby.frame, or no, we're just going to stop at leave lobby and just say enabled equals true. And then down here, we're going to add player.playerGUI.leave lobby.enabled equals false. And that should be it. Let's give it a test. All right. Make sure you've disabled the UI before starting the game up. So again, I'm going to load over there. All right, so when I touched it, the button shows up, and it says that I joined the lobby, and it shows I'm in there, and if I keep trying to touch it, it's going to say I'm already in the lobby. Now when I click this, button disappears. It says I've been removed from the lobby, and it shows me an empty table. Perfect. You see, with any lobby I can join, I can leave. So how do you stop someone from jumping from this pad to this pad, even though they're already part of it? Well, you can have like a little invisible box around the lobby to stop them from wandering around, or you can come up with another creative solution. But honestly, that's what I would do. And then when they click the leave button, just have them teleport back outside. Yeah, that's the end of this video. Hopefully this helped in you making any games you're trying to make, and I would love to see what you guys can come up with. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to join the Discord. I'm always there to answer questions whenever you have them. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.